we'll get into that in a moment. We're continuing the interpretation of images. So we're going with the blue color. We understand the blue color as the color of the sky. For them, the turquoise blue and turquoise was the color of water. So if we've already spoken that the mantle of our Blessed Mother is not sky blue, but green, jade green and quetzal green, sacred green, then the blue color is found on the outside of the image. We see here, this is a photograph that I took of the original in the Basilica, and we see how around it is clear that it's blue and white. Blue, white, blue, white. So like the mantle of Tlaloc, blue, white, blue, white. So she comes in a niche of clouds. She comes from the place of God. She comes from the place of origin. She is she's sent by the God that is in the heavens. This is one of the pots dedicated to Tlaloc. See the indigo blue color used. For the Europeans, this was so foreign to them. The concept of the understanding of Our Lady in the iconography of the natives was so foreign to them that the images that were painted by them corrected the mistakes that God had made in the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe. So we see here how she's got the blue mantle. She, of course, is crowned. And then we see the angel at the base, rosy-cheeked and blonde curls and dimples. And, of course, the wings are perfectly golden. So that's how foreign the entire concept of Our Lady of Guadalupe was to them. So this is the original, and this is exactly as she appeared. The yellow color, or gold, was the color of fire, was the color of the sun. This is the face of the God of the sun, and we see that his hair is blonde. His hair represents the sun rays. So naturally, he has the blonde hair around him. The snakes of fire, the sun rays, are also seen as snakes of fire. The God of the sun is life-giving. The warmth of the sun brings about the flowers and the fruits that we eat. So his is also life-giving. So the snakes are life-giving. We see the rays of the sun are life-giving, and we see how they're undulant. The rays on Our Lady of Guadalupe is one wavy, one straight. One wavy, exactly the same as the sun rays. So we see how, for the natives, she's standing in front of the sun. She is greater than the sun, the greatest of their gods. When she heals Juan Bernardino, the shaman, the man who has already told him that the sun has the soul of his uncle in his clutches, he's confirmed that it is the God of the sun. She heals him. So she takes, in the mindset, she takes the power of the sun and pushes it aside and says, no. She's greater than the greatest of their gods. For European church iconography, when we see a halo, when we have a halo on the head of saints, that represents the presence of the Holy Spirit, divine presence. When we see Our Lady of Guadalupe, we see that the halo goes all around her. When the angel Gabriel greets her at the moment of the Annunciation, she says, Hail Mary, what? Full of grace. We see she has the fullness of the graces of God. The embroidery of the dress Now, I told you there's a lace that is embroidered in gold. Since we understand that the symbols have a significance, there are several flowers. We have 3 types of flowers particularly. The biggest ones are called the flower hills, tepeyac. So we see these flowers here, the big ones. There's 9 flowers. These represent hills. And since they have foliage around, they have woods in them. They're very rich hills, except for one, this one. This one has no foliage. We see here the symbol for the hills in the codex, in the native codexes. We see how it's got these lobular 3 lobes on each side, and then it has that yellow part on the bottom and that red line, and that represents the center or the base of a hill. If we look at the flowers on the dress of Our Lady, it has exactly the same elements that we see on the codex. So each one of this is a hill, and the foliage around is the woods, except for this particular one. As we can see here, this flower has no foliage. So this hill is a dry, barren hill. However, it has flowers, and we see the flower here that comes from above, the flowers that come from the heavens. So these are flowers. It's a dry, barren hill with flowers that come from heaven. Does that sound familiar? Where have I heard that story before? What would this hill be? Don't worry, it's not a test. I'll grade you. The what, sorry? The New Jerusalem. Good idea, no. No, a hill that is dry and barren, that has flowers that have come down from heaven. Tepeyac. So, if we take this hill, this dry, barren hill, see how it's touching the mantle, the flowers that are growing on it, are coming from heaven. We take this flower and put it on top of Tepeyac on the map. We're going to find that each one of the 9 flowers corresponds exactly to 9 mountains that are located exactly in the very center of the continent, the geographical center of the continent. This is the Gulf of Mexico. This is the Pacific. Her head facing towards Jerusalem, to the east. 19.5 north, for those of you who do maps. That's exactly the center where she's located. Now, the other flower that we have is the Venus flower. The flower that we have here is a flower that has 8 petals. We see that it has 2 round ones and 4 round ones and 4 thin elongated ones. This, for the natives, was the symbol of Venus. And Venus is the morning star. It's a planet, never mind, it's a morning star. And the Venus was the symbol of Quetzalcoatl. If you remember the legend that I told you about Quetzalcoatl, before he left, he prophesied that there would be white men with a white god that would come from the Orient to put all of the other gods in their place. And we see this on her dress. So she brings the white god from the Orient that will put the other gods in their place. And that is the original. Sorry, am I blocking your view? Okay. You can see it here on the computer. No. The other flower that we have is one 4-petal flower. The only one 4-petal flower right there. In the very center. The 4th petal flower came from a cave located under the Pyramid of the Sun in Teotihuacan. The cave is under the pyramid, not inside. This was a natural cave with 4 chambers. And that is why they built the pyramid there. This 4 chambers, this cave with the flower with 4 petals, symbolizes to them the union of the 4 elements. The concept of the creation of the universe. The circle in the center represents the place where the living God is, the creator of all the universe. The Aztecs flipped it and used it for the design of the Aztec calendar. So we have the 4 elements coming together, bringing the God, the center of all creation, where he lives. And that's exactly over her womb. She brings the God giver of life. When she introduces herself to Juan Diego, she tells him, I am the ever-Virgin Mary, mother of the one true God for whom one lives. All human sacrifices ceased within 4 years, from 250,000 a year to 0 in 4 years. The entire population of his town was being devastated in the name of God, to please God. With this, they stop. And that's the origin. Now, the cincture that she's wearing, the belt, is black. Quetzalcoatl, the legend of Quetzalcoatl says that he transformed himself into a black ant in order to go into the underworld, and then takes the bones and the ashes of the men that were created and destroyed before, sacrifices himself by drawing blood and mixing it with these bones and ashes, and gives life to man in motion and movement. So the color black becomes the color of Quetzalcoatl. The pregnancy that we see here, this is a woman that lost her life while giving birth. So she has this belt tied around with the 2 ends of this belt hanging down. That is a symbol of pregnancy. When we see Coatlicue, Tonantzin Coatlicue, the mother goddess, we see how she has 2 ends of her belt hanging down. So she is pregnant. The black color, the high priests and the people that participated in the sacrifice would cover their bodies with ashes so that they would be wearing black, so that would become black, reenacting the moment when Quetzalcoatl takes his blood and then gives life. We see how the belt is black. But it is not only 2 ends that come down, it's 4 loops. And then the 2 ends that come down. So she's pregnant with the God creator, the beginning and the principle of all life. The fact that the belt is tied up high, that represents the pregnancy. That is clearly showing that she's pregnant. About 5 to 6 months. The moon underneath, there have been several people who have asked me, what are those horns on the bottom? Is she stepping on the devil? Is she just crushing the devil? No, those are not horns. That's the moon. It's a crescent moon. Now, why would it be black? Sorry? An eclipse, exactly. The moon is in front of the sun. If it were any other color, it would be a mistake. God makes no mistakes. After she's got her foot stepping on the moon, and she's standing in the center of this crescent, she's standing in the center of the moon. When the Aztecs went to Mexico, right in the valley of Anahuac, they lived for a short time in the hill of Chapultepec. At night, they would look at the moon reflected in the center of the lake. So they called it the belly button of the moon, the center of the moon, Mexico. So she actually standing and set foot in Mexico. When Juan Diego's trying to run away, going by the back side of the hill, the east side of the hill, she descends, starts walking down the hill. She sets foot and touches land. The brooch that we see that she's wearing, this is the only one element in the entire image that has absolutely no meaning to the natives. This is the cross that the priests, the friars, were wearing, and that they also had with them. That meant that everything that Our Lady, the whole message, the God giver of life, she never mentions the name Jesus Christ or Jesus the Christ. She never mentions him by name. But this means that the gospel that the priests are speaking, that is the God giver of life. That is the God that she is bringing. Our Lady appears to the natives and they start converting. They hear the story, they see the image, and they immediately ask for the Eucharist. They want to receive communion. They want to receive God. They are told, you have to be baptized first. Okay, go. We had 200 baptisms per day from a handful of converts that were being killed and attacking each other, to 200 baptisms per day. Confirmations, 200 confirmations per day. It was an assembly line of confirmations. Weddings, about 100. No, not true. They started marrying sacramentally. Before the conversion, they understood that they had to have as many women as they could afford in order to have as many children as they could possibly have, in order to have enough human hearts to have enough human sacrifices to perpetuate life. That was their sacred duty. Now they married sacramentally, for love. And all this from Our Lady. 9 million converts in 5 years. It is the largest conversion in the history of all mankind. The priests the friars wrote in their diaries, divine exhaustion. They needed help to raise their arms. They were exhausted by the end of the day. This was the only conversion in the history of mankind that was not forced, was not by the sword. Now, we put aside Okay, let's say faith. And we're going into science. Reason. Absolute reason. Now, we're going to see how from reason we reach faith. So the very first thing we're going to see are the constellations, the stars on the mantle. At first, people thought that they were just placed. And we can see that they're aligned. You can see imaginary lines here that are actually aligning the stars. They're in a neat little row. Neat little rows. Yeah, God does things in neat little rows. We see here that each one of the stars is part of a constellation. Maybe you can see it better with this one. You see here, for those of us who are not used to studying the stars, Scorpio, Ursa Minor, Ursa Major, Southern Cross. These are the ones that are perfectly visible on the mantle. The ones that are not visible, we see above her head, this group of stars is called the boreal crown. She is crowned with stars. She has on her chest Virgo, the Virgin. On her womb, Leo, the lion. In the Old Testament, Jesus is referred to as the Lion of Judah. On her knees, Gemini. Yeah, that one I don't get. I have to look for a theological significance for that one because I haven't found one yet. The one on the bottom, Orion. Over the angel, the guardian. Now, it took them a little bit to identify the constellations because they're wrong. They're on the flip side. If you look at the chart of the stars, this is how you see them. However, the stars that we see on Our Lady are on the other side. That's because they are seen from heaven to earth. Who told you you're the center of the universe? There's the view from God. And God makes no mistakes. The position of the stars are exactly the position where they were on December the 12th, 1531, around 10:40 a.m. The universe expands. If you take a computer, you can see the place where the stars were that match these positions. The moment Juan Diego was giving the roses to the bishop and the image is imprinted, the positions of the stars from the point of view of God looking down onto the bishop of Juan Diego, that is the position that is imprinted on the tomb. Like a photograph from space. And you can see the position right here. Exactly with her head facing towards Jerusalem. In 1954, and then again in 1963, Francisco Camps Rivera, a professional photographer, an expert photographer, made a infrared photographic analysis. He works with a lot of the world museums, and he uses infrared photography on paintings in order to see what's under the paint. Normally what you find is the drawings, the sketching of the drawings, where the paint is going to go, the gesso that will hold the paint in place. If the painter changes mind, which happens very often, If the painter changes his mind and then he decides to place a dog instead of a child, a hand change position, anything like that, that shows up through infrared photography. You can see what's under the paint. So he took a photograph, an infrared photograph of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and what he found was nothing. There's no drawing, there's no previous analysis, there's no changes, there's nothing underneath. Even more, there's nothing holding the paint in place. Technically, she shouldn't exist. If you try to paint this, anything you apply will fall off. Naturally. It has nothing to hold the pigments in place. Well, guess what? 480 years later, she's still there. Now, if you like mathematics and geometry, the domus aurea, the proportion, the mathematical analysis, the golden ratio, the mathematical analysis of everything on earth, the one that was used by the Greeks and Romans and in the Renaissance periods in order to see perspective, the proportion, the mathematical analysis of flowers, all of this resumes into, we can see things that are harmonious to our eyes, and it's down to the molecular level. All of nature, of course, responds to the golden ratio. When that is applied to Our Lady of Guadalupe, she's mathematically perfect.
Another miraculous aspect of the image of Guadalupe concerns the reading of the image. Quote, "The Indians saw something in the image of Our Lady that the Spaniards did not comprehend. In that period, the Indians did their writing in hieroglyphics. So to them, the image was a hieroglyphic letter. The fact that the natives read the image is most important in understanding the purpose of Our Lady's apparitions. To the Indians, the image depicted a beautiful lady standing in front of the sun, a sign to them that she was greater than the sun god, Huitzilopochtli, whom they worshipped. The crescent or the moon beneath her feet showed that their moon god, Tezcatlipoca, was less than nothing, since she was standing on it. The stars they thought so much of were only a part or a portion of her mantle. At her throat was a brooch with a small black cross in the center, reminding them that this was the emblem of the Spanish friars, and that there was one greater than she." End quote. That comes from Father Harold Rom, Am I Not Here, page 56. As we can see, the intelligence that constructed the miraculous image of Guadalupe, which conveyed exactly the message that the Indians needed to hear and to see to bury their false notions about God and their idolatrous practices, is infinite and beyond anything humans can imagine. Reading the image caused millions of Indians to put away their idols and convert to the Catholic faith.
In the past 100 years, more than 20 ophthalmologists, including a couple of atheists, have investigated Mary's eyes. They all confirmed that when looking through an ophthalmoscope, her eyes reflect light in the exact three-dimensional proportions of a spherical human eye. The same results have been found every single time since it's been examined by experts. But this is where it really gets crazy. Dr. Tonsman said, though the dimensions are microscopic, the iris and the pupils of the image's eyes have imprinted on them a highly detailed picture that includes at least 13 people. He said the same people are present in both the left and the right eyes, but in different proportions, just as would happen with real human eyes as they reflect the objects that are before them. And he discovered a scene, imperceptible to the naked eye, the exact scene at the moment when Juan Diego lowered his tilma and roses flowed forth onto the bishop's floor. But the scene is from the perspective of Mary as she is on the tilma today. They identified 13 people present in the scene, from the bishop to an unidentified family. It's no accident that we have now discovered in the new age, in the new era, Mary's message that she keeps before her eyes not only the hierarchy of the church, but the human family, each one of our families. Dr. Philip Callahan, a NASA scientist and University of Florida professor, studied the image with infrared rays and found that there is no trace of paint on the original image and that the fabric has never been treated with any kind of technique to preserve the material. Dr. Tonsman noted that Professor Callahan showed how the image slightly changes colors as it's viewed from different angles, a phenomenon known as iridescence. Dr. Callahan also noted that infrared imaging revealed no brush strokes on the image, but that the image appears to have been imprinted with a single act, a single stroke. He also discovered a phenomenon often found in nature called diffraction, because Mary's face appears white when you're up close, but olive at a distance, a phenomenon that scientists find, for example, on the surfaces of birds and butterflies when their color changes depending on your viewing angle. Dr. Carlos Fernandez del Castillo, a gynecologist, also determined.
Okay, there's one thing I'd like to say here before I move forward, and that was when the man mentioned that Our Lady of Guadalupe was facing west when she was talking to Diego. The same thing happened with me when Jesus showed himself to me. He was facing west with his arms down, palms out, and he was wearing blue and white. I was allowed one question, and the answer came to me in a vision shortly after, immediately, and there was Jesus in the garden praying on his knees, facing east. This will be brought up again. This is truly cause for discernment. I just want to say that my faith is very strong, and I won't have anybody tell me where I should or should not look or where I should or should not go, because Jesus would not be there. I don't believe that. When I talk about Mary Magdalene, you call me Gnostic. When I talk about here Fatima, I'm Catholic. When I'm talking about Our Lady Guadalupe, I'm Native. And I remembered the verse where Jesus says, I am many to save a few. So I'm just going to read this out, and I'm going to read out what happened in Fatima, but it'll only be in points. I don't have much time on the video here, so I'm just going to break it down, okay? And I'd like you to see the similarities and differences, because this helps us to receive. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, and a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and under her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailed in birth, and pained to be delivered. Now this is revelation. Okay, so here, you have Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta Marto, and their ages are 9, 8, and 6. Okay, so these were the 3 children that witnessed the vision and the apparition of the Blessed Mary. And it's Lucia here at 9. She's the one that tells the third secret, or was to give the third secret at a certain time, and then something terribly goes wrong. So again, this is the woman here, Lucia. Okay, here I'm going to stop a minute, and I just want to remind you and to share also that, again, when in my dream, as we're descending from the mountain, now this was a dream again, describing for me, or getting me to understand the vision that I received at the age of 12. So here, I again want to remind you that as we're descending down from the mountain, I look over to my left, and it's to my left that I see the fires on the mountains. It's to my left that I see the lawlessness within the valley concerning of all ages here. Okay, so again, to the left, I see the fire and the lawlessness in the valley. Okay, I'm going to continue here. Now, this is Lucinda. The third part is written down by Sister Lucia on January 3rd, 1944. I write in obedience to you, my God, who commanded me to do so through His Excellency the Bishop of Leiria and through her most holy mother and mine. After the two parts which I have already explained, at the left of Our Lady and a little above, we saw an angel with a flaming sword in his left hand. Flashing it, it gave out flames that looked as though they would set the world on fire. But they died out in contact with the splendor that the Our Lady radiated towards him from her right hand, pointing to the earth with his right hand. The angel cried out in a loud voice, "Penance, penance, penance." And we saw it in an immense light that is God. Something similar to how people appear in a mirror when they pass in from of it. When they pass in from of it, a bishop dressed in white. We had the impression that it was the Holy Father or a bishop, a priest, men and women, religious, going up a steep mountain, at the top of which there was a big cross of rough-hewn trunks as of cork tree with the bark. Before reaching there, the Holy Father passes through the big city, half in ruins, half trembling with halting step. Afflicted with pain and sorrow, he prayed for the souls of the corpses he met on his way. Having reached the top of the mountain on his knees at the foot of the big cross, he was killed by a group of soldiers who fired bullets and arrows at him. And in the same way, there died one after another the other bishops, priests, men, women, religious, and various lay people of different ranks and positions. Beneath the two, I'm not quite sure about this here. Beneath the two arms of the cross, there was two angels. I can't pronounce this. Crystal in his hand, in which they gathered up the blood of the martyrs, and with it sprinkled the souls that were making their way to God. Okay, so the meaning of the left and the right here. So here, I just want to say that when I heard Ezekiel, 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 I heard it in my right ear. When I was ordered to get out of the car and to look up, I heard it in my right ear. Okay, so here I want to go down. I'm just skimming through this. I don't have enough time here. I thought this was really important also, where she says, with that, she rose into the air and moved towards the east before disappearing. Again, the answer that was given to me in the vision, Jesus was facing east. When you see him on the roof, he is facing southeast with his arms up. Okay, so now I'm making the connection with the Blessed Mary in Mexico, Our Lady of Guadalupe, and that would be with the sun and the roses that were given to the bishop, where she stands in front of the sun and she lets the natives know that she is greater than the sun, greater than their God, and the roses went to the bishop. So here I'm just going to read out the similarities a little bit here, and you can, this was just popping out at me. So here I'm just going to read this out. This was October 13th, 1917, Fatima. The prediction of public miracle caused intense speculation throughout Portugal, and the reporter Alvelino Delamay published an article in an anti-religious newspaper, Século. People from other parts of the country descended by tens of thousands on the Cova, despite the terrible storm that lashed the mountain country around Fatima on the eve of the 13th. Many pilgrims walked barefoot, reciting the rosary as they went. All all crowding into the area around the cova. By mid-morning, heavy rains began to fall and the mud was ankle-deep. The children reached the home oak around noon, and then they saw the flash of light as Mary appeared before them. Lucia asked what she wanted. "I want to tell you that a chapel is to be built here in my honor. I am the Lady of the Rosary. Continue always to pray the Rosary every day. The war is going to end and the soldiers will soon return to their homes." Now, I don't know if this is World War One. I don't know. Lucia made some requests for cures, conversions, and other things. Mary responded, "Some yes, but not others. They must amend their lives and ask forgiveness for their sins." Our Lady grew very sad and said, "Do not offend the Lord our God any more, because he is already so much offended." Then opening her hands, she made them reflect on the sun, and as she ascended, the reflection of her own light continued to project on the sun itself after she disappeared. During the solar phenomena, the sun whirled and zigzagged, casting colors about the crowd as it began to descend towards the earth. The 70,000 people assembled cried out in terror, thinking it was the end of the world. After about 10 minutes, the sun returned to the sky. Then a howling wind began to blow, despite the leaves on the trees remaining still. The rain-soaked people were suddenly dry and their clothes clean, and the ground was completely dry. Here, Matthew 17:2. "And was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his remnant was white as the light. And behold, there appeared unto them Moses and Elijah talking with him. Then answered Peter and said unto Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If thou wilt, let us make here 3 tabernacles, one for thee, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. While he yet spake, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of the cloud, which said, This is my beloved Son, in whom am I well pleased. Hear ye him." Daniel 9 and 10. "At the beginning of thy supplications the commandment came forth, and I am come to show thee, for thou art greatly beloved. Therefore understand the matter and consider the vision. And said, O man greatly beloved, fear not, peace be unto thee. For be strong, yea, be strong. And when he had spoken unto me, I was strengthened, and said, Let my Lord speak, for thou hast strengthened me." And this is what I'm doing with the vision that was given to me at the age of 12, not knowing anything about it, but having a picture in front of me. Now standing in my vision. I had a dream in 2016, which is now giving me understanding of the vision. Is there not a verse out there where, is there not, does he not say, I will show you in a vision, I will speak through you, I will speak to you in a dream? Would this not be considered new? And he said, Hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, the Lord, will make myself known unto him in a vision, and will speak to him unto him in a dream. No fear, be love, and give hope. Thank you, Jesus.